So I've gotten so many questions on this channel over the years about what a securely attached relationship should look like and really feel like, especially for somebody who's earned secure. So gone from an insecurely attached style and made the necessary steps in order to really heal their attachment style and become securely attached. And as a result, we are going to talk about that right here, right now. And I'm actually going to be sharing a sneak peek of some of the more in-depth content I share within the personal development school, since we have 6 live webinars every single week all about really in-depth content. So in today's sneak peek, we are going to cover specifically the pillars of a relationship, the necessary pillars that we have to understand in order to become securely attached. And we'll talk a little bit about what they mean, but really we're going to talk about how this models what a secure relationship should look and feel like as the end user, in other words, as you diving into this experience. So I hope this gives you some context, some insight, and I really hope that you enjoy this clip. Now, when we're insecurely attached, we generally do a lot of different things, right? We can, in the dating stage, we can hang on too tight, we can push away too fast, depending on what our attachment style is. But there tend to be really important pillars as you are learning to open up more. And as you are learning to be more securely attached and you're doing the work, you'll see a whole bunch of different things start to happen at these different stages. So, first and foremost, when we look at some of these different dynamics, you'll see that one thing that's really important and has a huge impact is that in the overarching stages. Okay, so we're gonna, just to be super clear, so this all makes sense because we're gonna kind of jump around a little bit. We talked about the 6 stages, what they are at a very high level, right? Now we're gonna go in and talk about the pillars that happen as we become more secure, and then we're gonna talk about those pillars and the different shifts that happen at each of those 6 stages, and we're going to compare it to the timelines, the natural way a secure person operates across each of those 6 stages. So you can see not just like what the healing process will look like, but also what that looks like naturally for a secure person. So at part 2 here, these overarching pillars of a relationship, some big things end up happening as you become more and more secure. So number one, vulnerability doesn't feel as scary. Okay. It's part of the path to becoming secure. It may feel very scary no matter what when you start being more vulnerable, but what you'll see is that you end up, through practicing vulnerability, you end up doing a lot of exposure work. So you get good at it and you get more comfortable with it over time. So what starts out as being, really vulnerable ends up being very comfortable. Okay. More and more comfortable over time. Another huge piece, right, is you learn emotional literacy. Right now, a securely attached person naturally has a good bit of emotional literacy because they grow up in households where they are, having their needs talked about, or conflict is resolved, and this is what's modeled to them. This is what they see. But as a person going from insecure attachment to secure attachment, by the nature of things, you're going to have extra emotional literacy to deeply understand how to move through the different wounds and things that you're carrying because of attachment trauma from the past. So what you'll see here is, you're learning, to express yourself, to communicate what you need, to open up a lot more about different things. And, when we look at a relationship, we need, and what we are seeking for is interdependency. Okay. And it's the best of both worlds. I can meet my own needs. I can work through my own core wounds and triggers. I can do all of that stuff. And I can communicate about it to somebody else and let them in and let them support me in it. It's not one or the other, it's both. And it's interesting because you'll see right along the attachment continuum, in a way, we've got APs really strongly on one end, DAs on the opposite end, right? And to come into interdependency, or that middle ground, what we need anxious preoccupieds to learn to build a relationship to themselves more, because they're coming from codependency. And then we need dismissive avoidance to learn to open up and let people in more, and develop a relationship to compromising with others more effectively, right? And to move more towards that interdependency, that sense of togetherness. Whereas we need AP is to move more from this space of being codependent to being a little bit more individualistic. And that's actually what's going to move them down the continuum into that sort of center ground. And so that's a space that we want to be operating from, right? If somebody's a dismissive avoidant, they need to learn to open up, get out of counter dependency or hyper independence, you can think of it as, and move into that middle space. And anxious preoccupied need to do the exact opposite. And that's bringing them to that center. Now, if you're fearful avoidant, you just have to get good at both, because fearful avoidants have the codependency and they have counter dependent behaviors, right? So they can really push people away, really shut people out, really push against enmeshment, but to extreme degrees, right? Where they cut off a relationship, they end something, they run away, they move from a space of a really strong flight response, for example. So you'll see that depending on your attachment style, you move towards interdependence. Okay. Now, from an integrated attachment theory point of view, right, we know that there's 6 major things that allow you to become securely attached. And that's what you want to be in here working on, right? If your one goal is get securely attached, there's 6 major things. Number 1, regulating your core wounds. Right? Learning to not regulate, recondition your core wounds. So if you have a whole bunch of ideas about relationships, I am trapped, I am helpless, I am powerless, I'll be abandoned, I'm not good enough, I'm unworthy, I'm bad, I'll be betrayed. You have to recondition those core wounds, because securely attached people don't come into the world with that, right? And so you may have had those painful experiences, but those painful experiences from the past, you don't want to let them determine what your subconscious comfort zone is in the future and what all of your fears are that you're going to bring into relationships going forward. So it's not regulating, reprogramming core wounds. The next big piece is learning your needs from an integrated attachment theory point of view. What are your needs in a relationship? And learning to meet them yourself, and then learning to also express them to other people, which is your communication piece. Okay. So being able to open up, communicate your needs to somebody else, receive them from somebody else. Okay. So we've got core wounds, we've got needs, we've got communication, we've got emotional regulation. Okay. So learning to actually, when you're triggered, regulate either through somatic processing or through the emotional processing tool in PDS, right? Which is always going to help you, question your stories, meet your needs. So it's kind of an extension of the core wounds and needs, but we can tie in some somatic work there as well. And I'll go through this again in a second, because these are really the components of becoming securely attached overall. So we've got core wounds, reconditioning. Emotional mastery course is the course for that if you're newer. Needs, learning your needs, how to understand your needs, and then how to communicate those needs to others. Okay. So that becomes the needs course and the communication course. Okay. Then we've got emotional regulation. That's going to be covered a lot in the first course, the emotional mastery course. But if you want to go a little bit deeper and tie in some nervous system work there too, it's called the somatic processing and nervous system regulation course. Okay. So there we've got that part. So we've got core wounds, we've got needs, emotional regulation, then we've got communication. Then we have, and let's see, I know a lot of you guys know what this is because you've done the IAT work, but you've got boundaries, right? Can't become securely attached if you don't get great at boundaries, okay? And great doesn't mean perfect. Great means that you're getting comfortable and used to expressing these things. And the last piece is updating your coping mechanisms, right? So we know that we have these behavioral coping mechanisms where, if you're anxious leaning, your coping mechanism is to activate, right? You'll try to hold on tight, call a lot, do all these different things to maintain proximity. Whereas if you're avoidant, your coping mechanisms will be more to deactivate. And we know FAs carry both. And so deactivation will be shut people down, stonewall, all these different things. We have to upgrade those behavioral coping mechanisms to do healthier things. Okay. So these overarching themes to become secure: recondition core wounds, learn your needs, and develop a relationship to your own needs. Learn to communicate the needs to other people. Emotionally regulate, which is covered a lot in the first piece, but some somatic processing, some nervous system regulation go a very long way. And then we have learning healthy boundaries, updating behavioral coping mechanisms. Okay. So if you can do these 6 things, you're going to see that becomes secure attachment. I hope you enjoyed this sneak peek from one of our webinars. We have 6 live webinars every single week. There's tons of time to come into those webinars, get your questions answered. And we have a past webinar library of many, many webinars about all sorts of different topics, as well as over 60 different courses that can really help you tackle everything from healing your attachment style and reprogramming core wounds to becoming the master of your own emotional state, learning your deep relationship needs and personal needs, as well as how to fulfill them, discovering your boundaries, breaking codependency, healing stress in the workplace. I mean, you name it, we've got all sorts of things in there waiting for you. If you want to check it out, you can use the 7-day free trial link down below in the description and gain access to all the resources at the Personal Development School, as well as you can come in and ask me your personal live questions, and I will be there to support you and answer anything that you have. I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you so much for watching, and please subscribe if you are enjoying this channel.